Sometimes a story comes along that reminds you karma doesn't always take years. Sometimes it's right around the corner. This is about Jim, a retired U.S. Army sergeant who'd served his country for over 2 decades. All he wanted was a quiet life in his new home. But instead, he got HOA Karen, a woman who treated the neighborhood like her own personal kingdom. What she didn't know was that Jim had faced worse than her petty rules, worse than her threats, and his discipline, patience, and strategy were about to send her empire crashing down. After retiring from active duty, Jim bought a modest, cozy home in a gated community just outside a small American town. For the first time in years, he had space for his vegetable garden. He could walk his Labrador, Duke, without worrying about the next deployment. His plan was simple: live quietly, mind his business, and enjoy the freedom he'd earned. On his second day there, she appeared. Karen, mid-50s, pressed pastel blouse, clipboard in hand, that "I'm in charge here" energy. "Welcome," she said, though it felt more like a warning. In less than 3 minutes, she rattled off 3 violations. His garden hose was visible, his flagpole was too tall, and, my favorite, his truck didn't fit the community aesthetic. Jim had stared down hostile combat zones. A woman with a clipboard wasn't going to scare him. Yet. It didn't take long for the petty nonsense to start stacking up. First, a $50 fine for having his trash can visible on trash collection day. Then, $75 for excessive noise while he repaired a fence in the afternoon. The kicker? She called HOA security for unauthorized construction when Jim was building a small greenhouse in his backyard. But the moment that lit the fuse, the day Jim raised the American flag outside his home, a tradition he'd kept since his first deployment. Karen marched over and told him to take it down, saying it violated HOA policy. That's when Jim decided this wasn't just about him anymore. This was war. Jim's military training kicked in. He started documenting every single interaction, every ridiculous letter, every bogus fine. But he didn't stop at paperwork. He went deep into HOA bylaws, state property laws, and federal veterans' rights protections. That's when he found his silver bullet. Federal law explicitly protected his right to fly the flag. Karen couldn't touch him on that front. But there was more. Jim discovered she'd been targeting other veterans in the neighborhood for similar violations and pocketing some of those fines under administrative expenses. No receipts, no paper trail. Jim compiled everything into a military-grade report, organized, indexed, cross-referenced. He handed it straight to the county attorney's office. Weeks later, an official investigation dropped like a bomb on Karen's kingdom. Turns out she'd been misusing HOA funds for years, paying for luxury landscaping at her own home, spa packages, even her personal utility bills. The HOA board had no choice. She was stripped of her presidency, fined thousands, and permanently banned from serving on any HOA board again. Karen went from strutting around the neighborhood to quietly loading her car and leaving. Jim still lives in that home. His flagpole still stands tall, the stars and stripes waving every morning. Duke still trots along beside him on walks. And the neighborhood? It's finally peaceful. No clipboard ambushes, no petty fines, no intimidation. Karen thought she could bully a veteran into submission, but she forgot something important. You don't threaten someone who spent their life defending the very freedoms you're trying to take away. And to that, I say, salute, Sergeant. Karen thought she could scare a veteran into silence, but all she did was hand him the perfect opportunity to show what real discipline, persistence, and courage look like. And that's the thing about people like her. They think they're untouchable until karma comes knocking. If you enjoyed watching HOA Karen get exactly what she deserved, then trust me, there are plenty more stories where this came from. Subscribe to Karen Karma, where every story ends with justice served and every Karen learns the hard way. Mess with the wrong person, and you might just meet the right karma.